Transformation does not wait for the perfect moment, the right timing, or a lucky break. It begins the second you make the decision that enough is enough, that the way you have been living cannot continue, and that the next chapter of your life will not look like the last. Most people spend years waiting for change, convincing themselves that they need more resources, more guidance, or more opportunities before they can finally begin. But the truth is, transformation does not take years to ignite. It takes a single decision backed by unwavering commitment. 5 days can change the way you think, the way you act, and the direction of your entire life. It is not about what happens outside of you. It is about what happens within. The moment you decide that you will no longer settle for less, the clock of transformation starts ticking, and every hour becomes a building block of the new version of yourself. Change begins with clarity. The first step is recognizing that the life you are living right now is a direct reflection of your past choices, habits, and beliefs. If those choices have led you to frustration, stagnation, or mediocrity, then the power to rewrite that story already rests in your hands. Too often people underestimate what can be done in just a few days because they are conditioned to think in terms of years and decades. But 5 days of absolute focus, discipline, and intentional action can break patterns that have held you captive for years. It is about compressing the power of decision into a short, unshakable time frame where every thought, every action, and every choice is aligned with your higher self. Think about the moments in life when everything changed for you. It wasn't always gradual. Sometimes it was a decision, a single moment of clarity that set everything else in motion. Choosing to walk away from a destructive habit, choosing to take a leap toward an opportunity, choosing to finally demand more of yourself. These decisions happen in seconds, yet their impact stretches across an entire lifetime. That is why the next 5 days hold so much power. They give you a container of time where excuses lose their grip, where distractions fade into the background, and where you face yourself without filters. What keeps most people trapped is not a lack of potential, but a lack of urgency. They say someday and later, but someday never comes and later is always delayed. 5 days is not about waiting for life to hand you transformation. It is about seizing it. It is about declaring that change is not optional, it is necessary, and you will not waste another sunrise living below your potential. When you compress your energy and intention into such a short span of time, you create momentum that cannot be ignored. You begin to feel the shift within you, and that shift becomes the seed of a new reality. This is the power of a single decision. Not a wish, not a hope, not a vague desire, but a firm and unshakable decision to transform. And once that decision is made, nothing can remain the same. The habits that once held you down lose their grip. The doubts that once crippled you lose their voice. The fear that once paralyzed you begins to dissolve. In its place, you feel a surge of clarity, an inner strength that whispers, "This is who I was meant to be." 5 days is not about creating perfection. It is about proving to yourself that change is not only possible, it is inevitable when you commit without compromise. The journey begins with that first spark, the moment you choose to confront your truth and embrace your power. You don't need years to rise. You need only the courage to decide that today is the beginning. Once you make that choice, everything else falls into place. 5 days, one decision, a lifetime transformed. The first day of transformation is the most difficult because it demands radical honesty. Most people spend their entire lives avoiding themselves, numbing their reality with distractions, and running from the truth they see in the mirror. But transformation cannot begin until you confront what is real. You cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge. Day one is about stripping away every excuse, every justification, and every story you've told yourself about why you are not where you want to be. It requires a level of honesty that feels uncomfortable because you are forced to face the choices, habits, and attitudes that created the life you are living today. This confrontation is not about blame. It is about ownership. The moment you claim ownership over your life, you reclaim your power to change it. Without ownership, you remain a victim of circumstances, pointing fingers at others and waiting for something outside of you to save you. But when you confront yourself with truth, you see clearly that the only person responsible for where you are and the only person who can move you forward is you. On this first day, you must silence the noise and look deeply at the patterns that have shaped your past. Every late night you wasted, every opportunity you ignored, every fear you surrendered to, it all compounds into the reality you now experience. This is not meant to condemn you, but to wake you up. Until you admit how you've sabotaged your own growth, you will continue to repeat the cycle unconsciously. The truth will sting because it reveals the gap between who you are and who you were meant to be. But that sting is necessary. It is the spark of awakening. True transformation never comes wrapped in comfort. It comes wrapped in discomfort, in the undeniable realization that the life you've been living is not aligned with your potential. That pain, instead of breaking you, must drive you. It must light a fire inside you that refuses to let another day pass in blindness. Day one is about standing face to face with your flaws, your weaknesses, and your failures without hiding, without pretending, and without excuses. It is about finally seeing yourself as you are so you can begin building who you can be. Energy is the foundation of all transformation, and day two is about reclaiming it fully. Without energy, discipline collapses, vision fades, and the will to act disappears. Most people live their lives drained, not because they lack strength, but because they waste their energy on things that do not serve them. They feed on toxic habits, allow negative thoughts to circle endlessly, and give their attention to people and situations that add no value to their lives. Day two is the breaking point where you cut ties with everything that bleeds your power. This is not just about physical energy, though that matters greatly. It is also about emotional and mental energy. You must decide that your body is no longer a dumping ground for neglect, that your mind is no longer a playground for self-doubt, and that your heart is no longer a battlefield for toxic attachments. Energy is currency, and you cannot spend it recklessly if you expect to build a transformed life. Every action you take either fuels you or drains you. Every thought you entertain either strengthens you or weakens you. And every environment you remain in either elevates you or poisons you. Day two forces you to choose deliberately to remove what weakens you and to nurture what empowers you. The beauty of reclaiming energy is that it awakens a power you may have forgotten existed inside you. When you no longer pour your time into meaningless distractions, you suddenly find yourself with focus. When you no longer indulge in habits that weaken your body, you find strength rising naturally within you. When you no longer allow negative self-talk to dominate your mind, you uncover confidence you didn't know you had. This is the law of energy. You get back what you invest. If you pour your energy into growth, you expand. If you waste it on excuses and self-sabotage, you shrink. On day two, you begin to see that transformation is not about trying harder, but about aligning your energy with the future you are creating. Your energy is your most valuable resource, and when you reclaim it, you reclaim control over your life. This is the day you begin to feel alive again, not because the world changed, but because you chose to stop surrendering your power to what no longer deserves it. From this point forward, every ounce of energy will be channeled into building the strongest, clearest, and most unstoppable version of yourself. By the third day, you realize that the body can be disciplined and energy can be restored, but without control of the mind, everything collapses. Your mind is the command center of your life. It is the lens through which you see the world, the filter that decides what is possible and what is not. If that lens is cracked with self-doubt, fear, or limitation, then no matter how hard you work, you will sabotage yourself at every turn. Day three is about reprogramming that mind, breaking free from the silent scripts you've been living by. Scripts that were written by past failures, by criticism you've absorbed, and by beliefs handed down to you by people who never lived the life you want to live. Transformation demands a new internal dialogue. You must replace thoughts like I can't with I will, replace I'm not ready with I am prepared, replace I'm not enough with I am more than capable. This isn't empty affirmation, it is rewriting the code that dictates your reality. The mind does not argue with repetition. What you feed it consistently becomes what it accepts as truth. If you continually tell yourself you are weak, you will act weak. If you continually tell yourself you are powerful, you will act powerful. The shift begins when you decide that your inner voice will no longer be an enemy, but the strongest ally you have. Reprogramming your mind is not just about positive thinking, it is about disciplined thinking. It is about catching every destructive thought before it grows into action. It is about interrupting patterns that no longer serve you and deliberately replacing them with patterns that align with who you are becoming. The mind is like a garden. If you neglect it, weeds of fear, insecurity, and negativity will take root and choke everything else. But if you cultivate it with focus, discipline, and empowering beliefs, it will bear fruit that sustains your entire life. On this third day, you begin to see how many of your past limitations existed only in your mind. The walls you thought were impossible to climb were never real. They were built by the lies you told yourself over and over. Once those lies are dismantled, once you feed your mind with truth, discipline, and vision, your entire reality shifts. You no longer move timidly, waiting for permission. You move boldly, knowing that your thoughts, your beliefs, and your inner voice are aligned with the greatness you are building. Day 3 transforms your mind from a prison into a weapon, and once that weapon is sharpened, there is no force strong enough to stop you. By the 4th day, you begin to understand that transformation is not powered by motivation alone, because motivation rises and falls like the tide. Some days you feel inspired, but others you feel empty, tired, uncommitted. If you rely only on how you feel in the moment, you will never be consistent. And inconsistency is the death of progress. This is where discipline steps in. It becomes the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Discipline is the ability to act not because you feel like it, but because you said you would. It is the contract you sign with yourself that cannot be broken. On day 4, you must tear down the belief that discipline is a burden. Discipline is not punishment, it is freedom. It frees you from regret, from wasted potential, from the cycle of starting and quitting. The greatest people you admire are not the most talented, not the luckiest, but the most disciplined. They did not allow feelings to dictate actions. They allowed commitment to dictate outcomes. Transformation cannot survive without discipline, because every new standard you've built in the past 3 days, honesty, energy, and mindset, will crumble if you don't back them with consistent action. Discipline is forged through small, unglamorous choices that no one sees. Waking up when your body says stay in bed. Following through when your mind says quit. Honoring your word when no one is watching. These moments repeated again and again become the steel framework of your character. Discipline is what separates those who dream from those who achieve. Many will begin their journey with passion, but few will last because they never learn to obey their own commands. On this day, you must harden your willpower into something unbreakable. You must train your mind to act not based on comfort, but on commitment. Discipline does not care about excuses, it does not bend to distractions, and it does not wait for the perfect conditions. It thrives in resistance. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you carve out a new identity, a version of yourself that can be trusted to finish what you start. By day 4, you no longer chase quick bursts of motivation. You have built a foundation of discipline that ensures no matter how you feel, no matter what stands in front of you, you will follow through. And once you develop that unshakable discipline, you become unstoppable. On the 5th day, after honesty has cleared your vision, energy has been reclaimed, your mind has been reprogrammed, and discipline has been established, you are ready for the final step, designing your future. Transformation without vision will eventually fade, because without a clear destination, your actions lose meaning. Day 5 is about creating a future so compelling that it pulls you forward every single day, even when challenges rise against you. This is not about vague wishes or empty dreams. It is about crafting a life blueprint with precision and passion. You must decide who you want to become, what you will stand for, and what kind of legacy you will leave behind. When your future is defined with clarity, your present decisions become easier because you no longer drift without direction. Every choice is weighed against the future you are building, and anything that doesn't serve that vision loses its power over you. Designing your future requires courage because it demands that you look beyond your current limitations. It forces you to imagine a version of yourself that is stronger, wiser, and more powerful than the one standing here today. That vision must be bold enough to inspire you, yet real enough to demand action. The future you design is not just a picture in your mind, it becomes the standard by which you live. Too many people create goals but never align their daily actions to reach them. On this 5th day, you bridge that gap. You must write your vision into the very fabric of your habits, your routines, and your discipline. If your future demands strength, then every choice with your body must align with strength. If your future demands wealth, then every decision with your time and resources must align with building value. If your future demands leadership, then every word and action must reflect the character of a leader. Designing your future is about alignment, about ensuring that what you do today mirrors who you want to be tomorrow. And once that alignment is set, momentum carries you forward. You no longer chase motivation because your future pulls you. You no longer live with regret because your actions are tied to purpose. Day 5 is not the end of transformation. It is the beginning of a lifelong journey where every day builds toward the future you deliberately designed. When your vision becomes clear and your life is aligned with it, nothing can stop the force of who you are becoming. Every transformation reaches a point where you realize that the only walls holding you back are the ones you built in your own mind. These walls are called limiting beliefs, and they quietly shape your entire reality. They whisper that you are not capable, not ready, not worthy, or not strong enough. They are the invisible chains that keep you repeating the same cycles, even when everything inside you wants to break free. Day 7 of this process is about smashing those chains once and for all. A limiting belief is nothing more than a story you've repeated so often that you've mistaken it for truth. Perhaps it came from failure in the past, from the voice of someone who doubted you, or from years of comparing yourself to others. But no matter how it was formed, a belief only survives as long as you continue feeding it with energy. The moment you question it, the moment you challenge it, its power begins to dissolve. Breaking limiting beliefs requires courage because it forces you to step into the unknown. The belief may have kept you safe, but it also kept you small. The second you declare, "This no longer defines me," you reclaim a level of freedom you may have never felt before. Think about the possibilities that open when those false barriers are destroyed. Every time you've told yourself, "I can't," you've shut a door that was waiting to be opened. Every time you said, "It's too late," you handed over the chance to build something new. Every time you believed, "I don't have what it takes," you allowed potential to rot inside you instead of bringing it to life. Breaking limiting beliefs is not about denying reality. It is about refusing to let fear dictate your reality. When you challenge these thoughts, you begin to see that the only real limits are the ones you accept. What seemed impossible yesterday suddenly becomes achievable once you stop sabotaging yourself with doubt. And the greatest shift happens not in the outer world, but in how you see yourself. You begin to see yourself as capable, as powerful, as someone who can create, endure, and rise above anything. Once your beliefs change, your behavior changes. Once your behavior changes, your results change. And once your results change, your life transforms. By breaking limiting beliefs, you open the door to everything you were meant to experience but once thought you couldn't reach. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in human transformation, and once it is created, it can carry you further than you ever imagined. The first 5 days may feel like a struggle, like you are pushing against resistance, but that resistance is necessary. It is what builds strength. Once you break through those first barriers, momentum begins to work in your favor. What once felt difficult becomes natural. What once felt heavy begins to feel lighter, and the habits that required effort start to flow automatically. Momentum is the reason why one small victory can spark a chain of larger victories. The energy you put into discipline, honesty, and belief compounds with time until it feels like the universe itself is supporting your movement forward. This is why most people fail in transformation. They stop too soon. They quit before the momentum has had a chance to kick in, before the compound effect has built enough power to push them past doubt and fatigue. But if you remain consistent, momentum will take the weight off your shoulders. It will push you when your willpower is low, and it will remind you that progress is no longer a fight. It has become a natural state of being. The key is to understand that momentum is fragile in the beginning, but unstoppable once it grows. Just as a small push can start a wheel turning, every daily action you take adds to the rotation until that wheel spins faster and faster with less effort. The habits you struggle to build become your new normal. The standards that once felt high become your baseline. Suddenly, excellence is no longer something you chase. It is simply who you are. This is the momentum effect, and it is what turns short-term changes into long-term transformation. It is what makes 5 days of intentional living capable of reshaping years of stagnation. Momentum transforms discipline into lifestyle, focus into second nature, and vision into reality. Once you reach this stage, the question is no longer whether you can keep going. The question becomes how far you are willing to rise. And the answer, when momentum is on your side, is simple. There are no limits. True transformation is not about short bursts of change, but about living in full alignment with who you are meant to be. Alignment means that your thoughts, words, and actions are no longer in conflict with each other. It means you no longer speak one thing but live another, no longer dream of greatness while behaving in ways that sabotage it. Alignment is power because it creates clarity, and clarity creates peace. When you live in alignment, you stop fighting with yourself. The inner battles fade, and every choice you make flows from the same foundation of values and vision. Many people live in constant stress, not because their goals are impossible, but because they live divided. They say they want health, but choose habits that destroy it. They say they want success, but live with no discipline. They say they want love, but betray their own worth. This split creates confusion, and confusion drains energy. But when alignment is achieved, there is no split. You know what you want, you know who you are, and you act in harmony with that truth. On this 9th stage, you must decide that your future will no longer be built on contradiction, but on alignment. Living in alignment also demands courage, because it forces you to walk away from anything that does not match your values. It means leaving behind relationships that drain your spirit, environments that poison your growth, and behaviors that betray your purpose. At first, this feels like loss, but in reality, it is freedom. Every time you choose alignment, you strengthen your integrity. You begin to trust yourself at the deepest level, knowing that your actions reflect your highest self. This trust is the foundation of confidence, the kind of confidence that does not need validation because it is rooted in truth. Alignment also attracts opportunities because when your life is consistent with your values, you radiate authenticity. People feel it, circumstances shift toward it, and doors open in places you once thought were locked forever. By living in alignment, you no longer chase success, love, or peace. They flow to you because you have become the kind of person who embodies them. This is the stage where transformation becomes permanent, because you are no longer acting out of willpower alone. You are living as the truest version of yourself.